This episode of Lord Johnlander includes sensitive topics that some listeners may find distressing or triggering. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Lord Johnlander, the Outlander podcast for Lord John fans, where we talk about all things Outlander, but especially about Jaime and his Sassenach.
And sometimes we talk about Claire, too.
For however long it takes, we'll lead you on a journey so chaotic, you'll question every life choice that led you to be here today. And like the Hotel California, you can check out anytime, but you can never leave.
We may not be the Outlander podcast you wanted, but we will be the Outlander podcast you didn't know you needed.
Now, before we get into it, this is your one and only warning that show and book spoilers are lurking around every corner. We're going to spoil stuff from future seasons, future books, and our own brains.
Remember, if you can't prove our headcanon didn't happen, then we can only assume that it did.
If you make it through the episode in one piece, we'd love to hear from you. Send us your burning questions, wild theories, thick prompts, flattering compliments, or whatever's on your mind. You can contact us on Twitter and Tumblr at Lord Johnlander or on our website at lordjohnlander.wordpress.com, where you'll also find our archived episodes, teasers, fic recs, and more.
Hello, welcome back to Lord Johnlander. We are your hosts. I'm Mistress Pandora. You can call me Pan. My co-host is here too.
Hey, it's Beth.
And we are once again joined by Ness, Geek in the Pink or Geek in the Fuchsia Hair, depending upon where you follow her on social media or AO3. Welcome, Ness.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me back.
I'm really excited for you to be here for this episode, particularly because your favorite character makes his introduction.
My absolute favorite. Above Dougal. Who would have thought? Who would have thought there was one?
Ness
I'm not
is
gonna...
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I wasn't going to say who your favorite is. I'm just going to see if people can guess by the end of the episode.
That's a fun game.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
so tell us in the comments or send us a note if you figure out who Ness's favorite character is, who I'm talking about. And I could be being sarcastic. You never know. It's me.
Tell me who I talk more vehemently about, Dougal or this character.
So this week we're talking about episode 2.2, not in Scotland anymore. We are now in Paris, kind of an indeterminate amount of time from the previous episode. It feels like it's only been a week, but it's been more, I think.
Oh my god, already one of my pet peeves with this episode.
There's
Louise Claire, when she's talking about Louise, mentions she'd become a good friend of hers in the few months they'd been in Paris. So there's definitely like a few months at least that have passed. Plus Claire has a whole other wardrobe now, so that takes a little while too.
All of it's bespoke. Before we get started, a couple of clarifications from last week. We couldn't remember if Jaime and Claire had told Marta the entire plan about not actually being Jacobites, like trying to subvert the rebellion. And yes, they did tell him everything except for Claire riding into town on a DeLorean.
Which he already knew.
Which we've decided he already knew. And I feel like that's the part that would have been easiest for him to swallow. So probably a stupid move on their part, but okay. And they also wildly guesstimated Inverness to Oxford in the 1940s as a day's drive. It's about 10 hours, according to the 30 seconds that I spent on DuckDuckGo doing a little research. Very little. But per our Scottish correspondent, that is accurate today because of the A9, but in the 40s, it was probably twice that. So, Beth, I'm going to go with your whole how did he get that dress authenticated so fast thing. Probably doesn't make sense because that's at least 4 days of travel and it was a week.
Plus the time spent off. I mean, it's not like you can just be like, oh yeah, authenticate. Like, I'm sure there was stuff the guy had to do to like make sure. So yeah,
I would be so disappointed if it didn't take time.
Yeah,
like you send the dress and he just glances at it and is like, yep, that's good, it's cool. What, dude? Okay.
The guy's phoning it in that day.
It's cool. My grad student looked at it. It's fine. Send it to the TA. It's authenticated. Anywho, So this episode, my first thought, and I'm gonna like stop talking for a minute. My first thought is that every moment of this episode is just specifically curated to be deeply uncomfortable. Between Jamie's nightmare, the clingy servants, Louise and her hoo-ha, poor little Mary, the royal shit, and I don't mean like Charles Stewart, I mean like the actual king taking his shit from...
Let's be real, both of them are deeply uncomfortable.
It's all...
They're on Charles.
Charles in the brothel, Duvernay's apparently uncontrollable foot fetish, Sandringham exists. Like, I was completely Myrta this entire episode. Just, I hate it here. I want out. I don't like it. I don't like it.
And the more when I was watching this episode this time, I really, because we had just discussed Myrta so much in our last episode, I really was like keyed into him, and he really is like the eyes and ears of the audience in this episode. Like, he really truly is, because he is seeing through everyone's bullshit. He's seeing through Jamie's bullshit, Claire's bullshit. He's seeing through Charles's bullshit. I mean, like, clear as day. Yeah, I know. But like, he really is our perspective, which is kind of, I'm going to keep looking out for that now, because I never really thought of it that way.
Yeah, I don't know this first half of season 2 as well as I know the rest of the seasons of the show. But I have a feeling that this is a recurring theme. And then the other thing too, not only is does Myrta kind of represent the audience and stuff too, but Myrta seems to be the thing that connects Jamie and Claire through the first, I think it's at least 4 episodes before they start kind of officially reconnecting. Because it's almost, because I know Claire is constantly worried about Jamie and his actions and his reactions and all that stuff. So she's like always, she seems to be like checking in with Myrta about him and stuff like that too. And then of course, as Jamie kind of always does, is Hope is asking Myrta for extra confirmation that Claire's been safe and that sort of kind of normal thing.
That's really interesting. I never really thought of that.
Yeah.
Because they're so disconnected. It's like something that's so different than the rest of the show, if we'll talk about the show specifically. And I remember originally it was like, oh, this sucks because they're so disconnected. They can barely talk to each other. So I know, like, a lot of times, like, I think there's a few episodes coming up later where there's certain conversations that Claire would have had with Jamie in different seasons of the show, but she has them with Myrta instead because she can't talk to him right now.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
I was just going to add something, and then it flew out of my brain, so we'll see if it comes back at an inopportune time.
That's okay. We'll jump around. It's fine. We've never done it before, ever. Totally. It's fine.
But, oh yeah, and then talking about, like, all the uncomfortable things in this episode, and also the juxtaposition of the uncomfortable things with, like, and then Jamie and Claire in bed, she's like, hey, everybody's favorite scene of check out my honey pot, and what did you do? And it's like the, because what they're trying to, because for people who don't understand, I guess, television writing, and this is season 2 of an incredibly popular show, and it aired, and obviously it had a built-in audience with the reader fan base and stuff. What they're trying to do is, season 1 was successful. They're trying to make sure to draw you back in, keep you here. That's why I think probably there was like a ton of money spent on the costumes and the sets in France and stuff like that, because it's just like an extra. And because the biggest draw of the show, the crazy sex, is not in the story, right? Because of what happened. So it's, and I know that's in the book, but the scenes specifically, like the sexy scenes or whatever, the few in this kind of awkward time. But it's like it seems so strange to have a scene like that, and even like the nightmare scene in the beginning, to have those in an episode that's so deeply uncomfortable. But I mean, as we know, the show is kind of has done this before, where it's like just a bit strange, inappropriate. Don't know how to feel about it. Kind of watching it again, and I had this weird thought too about that, specifically about the honeypot scene too. I was like, does she like? Is there really this message that like there's something sexy enough that he's just gonna get over his trauma? Like if it's hot enough, if it's new enough, if it's exciting enough. I'm just come on.
He was so uncomfortable, and it was so awkward, and he was trying.
Was she?
You know, she was.
She was.
And I have a few other points to make on what you said. Well, but first, what I was going to say about Myrta is that he has always been like the captain of the Jamie Claire ship. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't surprise me that when they're kind of on the outs, he's trying to be that glue that holds them together. And then you mentioned how they were trying to like, you know, keep the audience interested and stuff, which is kind of cool because if you think about it, Scotland itself is like a character in season 1. So to take them out of Scotland is like almost like the death of a main character.
Oh yeah, so, it's not great for season 2 of a show. I'm sure the writers and the producers were worried about it. Yeah.
So they had to do something to keep the
interest down.
Yeah, and what really bothered me, and I didn't watch the show at the time, but obviously I've seen like the Entertainment Weekly covers and stuff like that. It really bothers me that they promoted the show so sexy for season 2 when there's like, I don't know, like 2 or 3 sex scenes in the whole season, which is fine. I think it's totally appropriate, but like, why are you like making it so sexual to bring the audience in when it's really not? And it's actually very much in the first half, especially about healing Jamie's trauma. Right. Yeah. But that doesn't really bring viewers in. Yeah, that never sat right with me. And, I think that like they've backed off on that a little, but like they definitely tried to keep that up as like how they're advertising it. And it just was not as appropriate in later seasons. It's just, I think
wasn't. Sometimes the promos of the show are the sexiest parts of the season, which I thought, like even season 6, like thinking about that. But I remember people thinking like, why do they look so glamorous in the promo shots? And they don't look like this at all in the show.
No.
And I was like, oh yeah, but I think the show has got in the same hamster wheel kind of as the books, which is like, oh, it's the books with the sex. Oh, it's the women, and it's this hot Scottish. It's just like that's just what it's reduced to, and they're playing off of that. And there's part of it that's understandable from a marketing perspective, but mostly when it's so much about sexual violence and trauma, it's deeply irresponsible. Obviously,
I completely agree. Like, especially these first few episodes where, in this one specifically, Jamie is waking up from a nightmare about Randall. And I didn't even think about like promoting the show in a way that they really probably shouldn't have. Because this part of the season, especially, this whole season is just trauma. I mean, it's all trauma porn, let's be honest. But this season in particular, because it's like Jamie can't catch a break. He can't catch his breath. He's going from one awful thing to another. Like, on the one hand, I'm glad that they don't just sweep his trauma under the rug, but it would have been really nice to see the impact that it's having on more than just his sex life, because sexual violence has lasting effects in other areas of your life.
Well, and I think that some of this comes from the way the show portrays it, because I was just having a similar thought, but about Claire, where, in the books, Jamie is struggling in all aspects of his life, but they are having an active sex life during this time when they're in Paris.
Yeah.
And
does it say that in the book?
yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, well, they had sex at the Abbey several times before they even went to Paris.
I totally forgot about all of that.
Yeah, like the honeymoon's over, but it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely, I feel like it's definitely portrayed in the show like they're not having sex. They haven't had sex.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's such a desperate thing until a few episodes from now, yeah.
And so like in the books, Faith is conceived at the Abbey.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I remember that.
And that's part of what makes the timeline so wonky, is because, like, if you think about it, in the book, or I'm sorry, on the show, for Faith to have been conceived, she would have had to have been conceived like before Jenny had her second baby.
Yes, yeah.
And that just makes the timeline really whacked out.
Yeah, she wouldn't have known on the boat going to France. She wouldn't have been
right.
Ellen then. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I mean, they're at the Abbey so long. Like, she actually tells Jamie she's pregnant at the Abbey after she's gotten pregnant at the Abbey. So, like,
oh, right,
they're there for quite a while. So that kind of whacks the timeline off too. But what I think it also does is, like Pin, you're saying, like, the show focuses so much on Jamie's how the trauma has affected his sex life, but it also puts Claire in this weird light of being just like annoyed because she's horny all the time, and like not like the other ways that she's frustrated with Jamie's healing, and or the other ways she's supporting his healing. And it does, the way the show portrays it, where they're not having sex, it then becomes all about the sex. And I don't think it's a very accurate portrayal when compared accurate portrayal of what actually happened in the books. And I would say that the show does a little better with Jamie, because, like, obviously having nightmares, though sexual in nature, that's going to affect every part of your life. It's going to affect, and like, he can't sleep. So that's going to affect, his reasoning, his temper, all those things. But you're right that it does become a lot about the sex. And I think because the show made the choices it did in how to show Jamie's trauma, or Jamie's reaction to his trauma differently, it all becomes about the sex.
I just had a thought based on while you were talking that the thing you said about making it all about the sex kind of makes Claire out to be this frustrated person who's horny all the time. And it occurs to me that this is another way that they're making Jamie's trauma about Claire. And yeah, she's the protagonist, but she's not the survivor here.
Right. And I don't even think in the book it was like that much. I mean, I do think book Claire is also selfish sometimes, and, that's an understatement, but I think again in the show, it's just, it makes it even more exaggerated, that, like, here's her husband trying to heal from this trauma, and she's just like, a bitch wants to get laid, right?
Well, and now I'm thinking they're just grasping for plot at this point. They're desperate, especially for Claire. Poor thing has no plot. Most of this episode, she's just like clinging on the backs of Jamie's, what she wants to be Jamie's plot, and Jamie doesn't even want it to be his plot. Like, that's what I'm wondering. I wonder if they just totally over dramatized it, because there's just so little plot in the first half of season 2. One of the reasons why it's some of the worst of the show, hands down. Feel free to at me. I don't care. I could argue this till my freaking deathbed.
But this happens on the show every time they decide to stray
from the books in a significant way. I mean, obviously there's things that you have to cut out. You can't fit everything in. But every time they try to take what is in the books and really significantly stray from that, this is what happens. They have nothing to go on, right? Like if they if they'd stuck to the way it was written, and as much as I do not care for the person that wrote it, it would have been set up much better for there to be better plot in this first half of season 2. Because I think part of the plot is that Claire feels so lost, right?
Mm-hmm,
but a lot of that gets lost in the muck of her being frustrated with their sex life.
Yeah. And I wonder too if it was what they thought. I doubt they talked to anybody, like had a sensitivity read by any means.
No.
We've known that they've not done that in the past. But
No.
I feel like maybe they had this modern assumption, let's say, that, oh, well, it's unrealistic that they start having sex immediately after Jamie suffered such terrible sexual violence. Also, our viewers are gonna question that, so let's just make it into a plot that kind of makes no sense and turns our protagonist into a more unlikable character.
Well, and I even just caught myself kind of saying the same thing, and then I had to stop myself. I was saying like, oh, but there were issues with how fast he was healing some of that at the Abbey. But then I'm like,
assumption somebody made, yeah.
Right. And then I'm like, wait, no, because it's different for everybody. So I can't make that assumption. I would just like to point out, as I'm going to take us a little bit back to season 1 here, in my hatred for The Search. Had they not done that episode, they would have been able to they could have done 2 things. Gotten rid of The Search. I mean, they obviously have to find
Got rid of the episode of The Search, which is a waste of time. Yeah. Let's just say that.
Yes. And cut down on some of the violent scenes in 15 and 16.
Oh my God.
They would have had time to do a whole episode at the Abbey the way it was set up in the book, where they get some healing done together. It would have been, and then it would have set up season 2 to be, I think, so much better in the first half.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Well, and they could have done what they did and was less successful in this episode, which was span it over 6 months or whatever.
Yeah.
And have nothing happen. And, that's the problem. You want to span it 6 months, at least have something happen. But, you could have had them trying to heal. You could have had an extra episode near the end of season 1, where that they spend a significant amount of time at the Abbey. Yeah, they could have gone through some healing. They could have there could have been a scene where that might have been the consummation of Faith, and then it would have made the whole thing, even just generally, would have made more sense.
And we would have gotten the hot spring scene.
Oh.
Yeah.
Which
that was a miss.
Yeah. I mean, that what a wonderful, beautiful scene that would have been on film, right? Them swimming together and just
some peace. God, who would have thought?
I was so disappointed. So I read Dragonfly and Amber after I watched season 2 or whatever. I watched before I read, and I was so disappointed when I got to that scene. I'm like, this would have been good cinema.
Yes, yeah, agreed.
This
would have been fun.
Yeah. Instead, well, we'll talk about this, I guess, when we get to the episode, but they tried to do a little fix it for that, and it sucked. But we'll talk about that later.
And then the other thing in relation to this topic is people are uncomfortable. Jamie's uncomfortable. Paris kind of Paris, while beautiful, kind of sucks. The people in it kind of suck. Even Louise, who's like fun, is just kind of obnoxious. At least in this episode. I think she does get better, but I do think she's overall lovable at the when we leave her. But yeah, she's a bit obnoxious and pushy in kind of a not fun way. And but then also, it's another episode that's just chock full of sexual abusers. It's just like a bunch of them, and one of them is a spoiler. I'm the bringer of spoilers. Who's shocked? But how is there? And then one is a representation and a reveal of the past sexual abuser. But I'm just like, how is there so many just like crawling around in one episode, like just lurking? And well, and then when it's kind of when the beginning of this episode starts with Jamie's nightmare, like I just think it's just a bit icky weird.
Yeah,
it's like the haunting of well, it's like the ghosts of the past and then some to come in the future too, which is just some fun times.
Yeah. Out of the frying pan and into the fire.
Well, yes, exactly. Yeah.
Randall's the gift that keeps on giving.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how many times you try to cancel the subscription to the Jelly of the Month Club, here it is.
It's true.
I know. It really is, and you kind of forget about it after, you've become so entrenched in knowing this show and books and characters. But like, when you find out that Jack Randall didn't die in the stampede, you're just like, freaking seriously, man?
Yeah. Like, they haven't been through enough.
Well, and I remember my husband, because he always has his little jokes about shows. So when the comp showed up, he's like, ooh, is this the evil guy for this season? And then I'm like, yeah, but they didn't even get rid of the other evil guy.
Yeah.
It's not a trade. It's an addition to.
Yeah.
That's what's also kind of weird about France, too. It's like, are the villains even villains? Like, the comps, like, what does he even... And this might be just because this is the stuff I've watched the least, but I'm like, what does he even do? He's just kind of, like, bitching the whole time in French.
Oh, his character, though, is really cool. It like, we miss out so much in the show.
Book. Yeah. Yes. In the show, it's like, why is he there? I'm sure I'm forgetting something, but I just remember, it being so, like, underused that I was like, I don't see the point of this.
I am hopeful he'll come back, actually.
Ooh,
like, season 8 kind of thing. I kind of hope that we start hearing rumors of him in season 7. But I really hope he comes back, because I feel like there's a storyline that's being hinted at in the books up through Bees that I think we just needs to be pulled.
Let's do it. Well, I like when things make sense. Please bring it back from season 2 to make it make sense.
No one said anything about it making sense. I just said we need to pull it.
There you go.
Well, and I get the things that keep me up at night about Outlander are things like that, where I'm like, is she ever going to resolve that? Or is it just going to string us along and then the whole plot's going to disappear? Because I kind of felt like in Bees, there was like some sort of weird confrontation with Fergus and Ian and like the representatives of the Comte, but I thought maybe one of them was the Comte, but I wasn't sure. And then they kind of had this thing, and then Fergus was just like, I don't care, and like left. And then it kind of swooped into this other evil guy storyline that involved John. And then I was like, is that it? Is that all is this done? Or is this going to come up again? Like, because you never freaking know with her. And it's like, are we just going to forget that ever happened? Because I get the feeling that is a distinct possibility, and that those are the things that keep me up at night.
What's cool though from from the shorter or novella, I guess it is, The Space Between, I think it's called.
Yes.
It's revealed that he's alive after the end of season 2, and he's a
Right.
necromancer.
Oh yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Which is badass. Not exactly what we were talking about. In case you just don't know, I'm going to spoil everything.
No, I think I know. I think if you don't want to say it, I suddenly remember all the bees discussion, and I remember now about why he would be relevant later on. Yeah.
So the theory is he's potentially Fergus's biological father.
Right.
Which at least is a nice connection. Those are the things I want. I'm like, don't just have a character hanging in the middle of the story for no reason. At least he's got a connection. So we better be.
And at least follow that thread and let's find out more about it, because the way it's been set up and the story that's been told about how he came to be Fergus's father is really interesting. So like, let's not just let that like die in the annals of
shit we didn't finish.
Diana's like non-organized files on her computer. Like,
well, especially when Fergus is such a major character and like survived so like up until still book 9. So
yeah, I do want to give a shout out to the set designers. We kind of sort of mentioned it, but I love Master Ramon's shop.
Mm-hmm.
It has that really cool like New Orleans Bayou feel.
Mm-hmm.
I forget that we're in Paris every time we're in that shop. I forget that we're in Paris and it's not like Interview with the Vampire.
It does give Interview with the Vampire vibes. Yeah.
The vibe. Anyway, love that.
Huge. Is it like a wooden crocodile or something? That's that you first see from hanging over the desk or whatever it is. That's pretty cool.
I think it's taxidermied.
Oh, is it?
I think it's meant to be taxidermied.
Oh, cool.
Because like there's some implication that Master Ramon is, if not also immortal / a necromancer, he's a traveler.
Right.
Well, and I think he can travel back and like he can travel before or past his current or true timeline or whatever, I think.
Yeah.
Right? Like
he seems to be able to go farther than he should.
Like the implication is that like Claire can go back and she can go forward again to like where she would be on those parallel timelines, but she couldn't, like, for instance, have gone from the 1740s to like the year 2023 or something like that, like, but he can. And isn't there something about the Comte wanting to be able to do that? Isn't that something in the Space Between? I can't remember.
I don't remember. There's like their powers seem to be the source of their rivalry, and like there's this really cool potential for like a wizard battle at some point, and I feel like we're gonna be cheated.
Nice.
Oh hell, now I gotta write it. Shit.
Well, now since our favorite author has like abandoned all the fantasy aspects of her fantasy story, like I just feel like that'd be nice. And then once again, that's another thing that would just help my brain. It was to just like, oh, you're gonna bring it back to some fantasy? That'd be nice. Yeah.
Can I also bring up, while we're on this topic, that was it Fergus's mother or somebody connected to Fergus? Oh no, never mind. I'm an idiot. It was the whole Percy using the last name Beecham.
Yes.
But that was okay, never mind.
No, it was Percy's wife. No, she's sister-in-law.
Oh, right. Yes. So like they bring that up. They have Claire like all wondering if there's like any possible connection. Mm-hmm. She asks Brianna through the letters that they're writing for her when Brianna's in the future, to see if she can find the like family tree that Lamb did or whatever. And then it's just like that they never talk about it again. And I'm like, that would be another really cool connection. Like, let's dig it out of the dustbin and revisit that. I'm having major agita here. I would also just quickly like to bring up that you mentioned Interview with the Vampire, and by the time this episode airs, we'll have been able to see two episodes, I think, of the new Interview with the Vampire that's coming out, the limited series. So, yay!
Everybody tune in, AMC.
I'm so freaking excited. It looks so good. That's not what anyone is listening to us for, but here you go, free of charge.
It's not like we don't mention a ton of other books and shows.
Yeah. I'm not surprised with the French stuff that we're talking about Interview with the Vampire, though.
And it kind of makes sense, too, to go ahead and plug this now, because I'm going to get an AMC subscription just for the show. And nice. I'm going to be totally normal about it, I promise. Then she wasn't.
You keep telling yourself that.
I'm not going to be normal.
Who are you really trying to convince?
Oh, boy. I don't know how, much you want to get into, the personal details of this, Beth, but I feel like Myrta in this episode is relevant to you personally.
Well, yeah, it's all kind of relevant, especially because last episode I was comparing myself to Myrta, because when he hates France, and every time he gets to France, all throughout France, he's complaining. And we talked about our experiences in cities near us, and I said, every time I go to New York City, I'm like, it smells like piss. Why does it smell like piss? And then this episode, he actually says it reeks of the chamber pot, and I'm like, I am Myrta. And I was just in New York City yesterday, and I was like, as soon as we got on this little highway that runs right around the edges of Manhattan, so you don't have to drive straight through the city for everything. I was like, oh, smell that smell, kids. And I rolled down the windows a little, and I was like, there it is, New York City. And it was just, that is just more of a general sewage smell when you first get into the city. And then when you're walking on the streets is when you just kind of get wafts of piss, as you're strolling along.
The antithesis of rolling down the windows as you're driving to the beach and you can smell the salt air and it's so nice and fresh. Nope. Get that stank.
I like to torture my family, so it worked out.
I mean, you gotta have a hobby.
This is too many people, so New York City would be that. So,
but we saw Beetlejuice on Broadway. It was excellent. Nice. It was hilarious. I did not expect to enjoy it as much as I did. It was hilarious. Yeah,
that's a fun reason to go to New York.
Yeah.
I'm going to highlight something in our outline. Who wrote that?
That was me.
Take it away.
I was just, watching the part in the brothel, and I was just like, shout out to all these men getting excited for the dildos. They were all so into it, and I feel like, we've talked about this a little bit here and there, but I feel like there's such a taboo in today's society, and probably most societies then, but maybe Paris was really a little, more open to these things. No pun or intended, or no imagery intended, I guess. But
now we have all the imagery. You just really open the aperture there.
Open just like Louise, just getting there.
But those dildos come out, and the guys are all like, "Ooh!"
And they're you know what I realized too? the one that you see prominently is freakishly long. I'm just like, I love that it's like the wildest dildo.
Giant wooden one. Oh my god.
Oh my god.
And I'm just like, and I didn't notice it in this episode, but maybe I just missed it, but like there's one part where like they walk by, they just like rub the dildo across the guy's face. but but I was just like, you know, there's this huge taboo that like a lot of men are like, oh, that's so gay, and anybody who likes butt stuff is gay or whatever. And it's just like, you know, I really appreciated the shout out to the dildos and the implications and all of those things. So
because like the intent was buy a dildo for your wife whom you've left at home while you're here having fun without her.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what, there were test drives taken that evening. I'm just saying.
Oh yeah,
there were test drives.
And that may have been like the wink wink intent, but none of those guys were going to buy a dildo for their wife, okay?
Are you kidding me? No.
I feel like my pervy brain totally failed me because I didn't even get that, but now it's so much better that way than even to obviously to buy them for your wife or to use them on the women in the brothel. I'm like, no, that way's way better. Damn.
Well, I mean, like, why not both, right? As long as
absolutely, yeah.
As long as you're cleaning it properly,
if you're cheering them on, like, of course.
Yeah. Oh, they were like excited for those dildos.
Never have you ever seen a group of men excited about dildos except for the one scene in Ever.
I mean, no, I don't think any. Well, I can't say any man, but like, I don't think like a group of men.
Yeah, a group of men
get
exactly.
would get that excited about like using a dildo on like a woman. I mean, collectively like that. Like they were like, ooh, like they knew what those were for. Okay. Yeah. They knew and they were excited about it.
And that one was freakishly large. It was like the ass blaster 5,000. Like,
it was so comical. I just loved it. It didn't even start out because I feel like the stuff that you usually see in period piece stuff is like a vague shape, very small, used for other things. You know what I mean? Like it's not just like so overtly. Like it's so funny.
I would like to point out though that it is accurate that they would have been so ornately carved.
Yeah,
I have done an inordinate amount of research on this for fit and morbid curiosity. So no, they really did look like that.
It makes sense in France under Louis and stuff. He was so ornate and it makes sense, I think.
We do in that fantastic scene with the gigantic, ornate, beautifully carved dildos, we do get to meet the Bonnie Prince for the first time.
Oh, what a joy. What a joy. Isn't everybody so excited for this new character who's a figure of history that was so effective and, you know, didn't kill a lot of people at all. And definitely had moral high ground and wasn't a petty little bitch. And
Ness's love language is sarcasm.
Oh my god. I was like...
the more sarcastic she is, the more she loves the character.
I mean, one of the first... It was like the third Outlander fic that I wrote was because I wanted to kill Charles Stewart so badly. Just in my soul. And it was perfect. It was for Halloween. I needed to write a thing for a Halloween event. And I was like, it's not usually my thing, but I'm like, oh, but you know what would make me so happy and I would revel in? And the one reason I would ever turn Jamie Fraser into a serial killer is to kill Charles Stewart so violently and aggressive. Oh my god. Like I can't. It's hard. It's hard for me to even state it, how much I despise this character. And I genuinely hate seeing him on screen so much. Which definitely, I should say, affects how much I dislike season 2, because he's just all over it. And to the point of, the sound of his voice makes me want to punch things. And then I don't know, I don't think his hair always looks like that, but his hair is so ridiculous. The little swirlies on the sides. Like, and then something about his teeth. I was like, have I never noticed how much his teeth bother me? Like, I could go on for days. How much, because he's just the most, I mean, and he's terrible, he's supposed to be terrible, he's not supposed to be a good character. Like, I know some of this is intentional, but I don't know if it's the actor's choice or something else, and I don't know, I don't remember having such a visceral reaction in the book, but I do think it's something about the voice, and I think the very first thing I kind of like shared with Pan and friends about how much I hated Charles Stewart was that he says "mark me" 700,000 times throughout season 2, and you just want to punch him harder every time he says it more and more and more. He only says it twice this episode. Lucky for me. You counted. I counted, and the next time I come on, I will be counting again. There should be, and actually, here's an idea for you if you care. Count them all. Have a little tally of how much he says it at the end of the episodes. I should have a season count. Sure, I want to know how many were actually in the script. That's what I really want to know too. How many added and stuff too.
Mock me.
And I did see one. I just want to say I did see one BTS thing with him and Sam, and he was like, "Oh, he's so funny, and he's such a great guy to work with, and he talks normally, when he's out of character. Like, he's obviously a great actor to like get me so invested in murdering this bastard. But I hate him so. Like, I don't know if like he's up there with like my least favorite characters I've ever seen on screen. Like, oh my God, I just never want to see him again.
Actually, I was going to say that it's probably a testament to his Andrew Gower, I think I'm saying that right, Andrew Gower's acting, that you were not as viscerally like turned off by Charles Stewart in the books as you are in the show, because he just really, I mean, he just goes all in with that character. There is like no, he just seems like one of those actors, like he just dives into the character with like no care for like, he just becomes that character. And he obviously, to a point, made it his own in ways too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I think that's just such a testament to his acting. But let's try to see him in something where he doesn't make our skin crawl.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and he clearly didn't care if people liked it. Like, I would imagine. I can't imagine anybody likes this character. If you do, well, tell me, and I might freak out. But please tell me. But because I can't imagine it, because I just find him. I don't know what's likable about him, except for I do know one. There's maybe a moment or two that comes up where there's like some kind of softer version of him or something, and I just want to punch him more, so it doesn't help me. But
you know what? He was in Poldark, wasn't he?
Probably. I mean, there's so many like repeat actors from, especially Outlander and Poldark, like specifically too. And the thing is too, I think I did see him in something else where he had dark hair, but I can't remember what it is. I'd have to look up.
He was like, I remember because if I remember correctly, he played somebody who, yes, he played somebody who's tried to assassinate King George III, and then tried, and so it was a historical person, like a real person, and then in the show anyways, I don't know if this is true in history, he was like one of the first people to try to plead like guilty or not guilty because of insanity, but then but then something happens in the show, and he is really annoying in that show too. I'll just,
it's
cut
just
to the
chase. It's part of his bag of tricks, just like the annoying. And but you have to give it up to an actor who like just doesn't care if everybody hates their character and finds them repulsive, and Like, that's a pretty, most people, you know, especially actors, especially, like, want to be admired and liked and stuff. And just, like, it's down to even the smallest, and I do put up for debate, is there a worse character in Outlander canon than Charles Stewart? I dare you. I dare you to bring it to the podcast for debate. Because even characters like, I don't know, someone might say Stephen Bonnet. At least Stephen Bonnet is interesting. At least he has skills. I could debate this for days. There is no worse character in an Outlander canon than Charles Stewart. Even down to the smallest shit, like, why does he call Jamie James? He clearly hears everybody else call him Jamie or Lord Buckchork or whatever he wants to do, but, like, nobody calls him James, so he's just that kind of asshole who decides no one calls you this, so that's what I'm gonna call you. Oh my god. I hate those people. I hate those people.
I think he's so hung up on constantly trying to prove his divine right to be king, that he's like, he just goes over the top with, like, formalities and trying to be above everybody else. So I think that's kind of an explanation for that. It was funny though, because we were trying to set up our point counterpoint for this episode, and Ness put on the document, Charles Stewart is the worst character in Outlander, and then Pan and I were both just like, I can't really, like, debate that. Like,
yeah, exactly. So I dare you listeners to bring it to us.
Yeah, but what
please.
a great opportunity for the listeners to contact us, write to us on Tumblr, Twitter, you know, write to us on our website. We have a contact form, lordjohnlander.wordpress.com/contact us. Tell us what you think. Is there a worse character than Charles Stewart? And let's hear your reasons why. Because I do like Ness's point that even if he's not, like, as evil as some of the other characters, he's also not even interesting. So, like,
and as far as television goes and entertainment goes, then those people win. Stephen Bonnet wins. BGR wins. Sandringham even wins. Lacey's characters are smart and achieve goals, and I think the thing that, one of the massive things that bugs me the most about Charles Stewart is he has so much power, even being somebody who was in line for the throne and then now is no longer. He's not even smart enough to manipulate people with this power, non-power, and yet he affects. You know what I mean? And then, but yet he affects such a massive, quote unquote, change. That still kills, I don't know how many people, so many people, and destroys the Scottish clans and the Scottish landscape, and does not, and like, for nothing. Like, I just, like, what's worse? Please tell me something worse than that shit. It doesn't exist, I'm telling you.
Well, we spent all of season 1 from, like, Rent, when the Jacobite storyline was first introduced, building him up as, like, this potential savior of the Scottish people, and, like, he's going to put a Catholic king back on the throne. It's going to be wonderful, and then we meet him, and it is just utter disappointment.
He's such a nitwit.
Yeah, because I did watch the show before I read the books, so I remember the build up and going, "Oh, this will be fun. This is a real historical character to meet," and then. Yeah, I'm sure that the massive disappointment of that first scene with him was like, are you kidding me? And then having Jamie and Merchant talk to him like he's a child, explaining basic shit to him. Have you been to Scotland, sir? Like, oh, please, I cannot.
Never in my life have I been less interested in learning the background of a character, especially one that is actually a historical figure. And that is saying a lot for me.
Don't tell me anything about him. I don't want to know.
Because I will research, like, already, like, we're talking about that character from Poldark, and I'm like, I don't think I researched that enough when I watched Poldark. I need to go I will research anything that is like actually historical and fall down a rabbit hole and get weird about it for like weeks. But Charles Stewart, I have no desire to know. I mean, I do know a little bit about him just because I'm obsessed with English royal history. But like not even that much, because I'm just like, you suck.
Yeah, you just suck. And I just find it so hard. I'll work around this spoiler. I just find it so hard to believe that anyone would have any romantic or sexual interest in him. I'm just putting that out there for that episode that's coming up that I'm not going to be able to make it to. I find it real. I know, whatever. Once again, power, not power. No, I refuse. No, I don't like it. I don't like that storyline. Give me something more believable than that bullshit.
So speaking of monarchies, shall we unceremoniously just jump right to Versailles?
Yes.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Beautiful. Let's start with the positives. Beautiful.
I mean, okay, so a couple of things about this whole sequence that I really love. I love that we get to meet Annalise. I love any interaction with Jamie and an old flame in front of Claire, and I'm including John in this statement because she's just like, I can't decide if I'm mad or if I'm going to laugh in your face, but I'm going to make it your problem right now. And I'm going to make you so uncomfortable, sir.
Oh my God. It was like, you're right. Because I'm like, is she amused or mad or both? Like,
it's a little both.
I still don't know. I feel like every time I watch that scene, I have a different opinion about it.
Like, shout out to Katrina Bell for her reaction in that scene, because it was just, it's like perfection, chef's kiss. Like, I love it.
Just delighting in Jamie's utter discomfort, because he's like, I do not know how to navigate this situation. I don't know. What do I do?
Claire's like, and I'm not helping.
Yes, I'm not going to help you at all. I just love it too, because Annalise just does not stop touching him. It's like the worst. And it's probably like, oh, she's so French or whatever. But like, and Claire keeps like, she's rather looking at his face or she's looking at the places that he's being touched by her, and then he'll like glance, and it's just like, it's comedy that's like so subtle. It's great.
Outlander is comedy.
Everybody is like, calls Jamie mostly by his title, or, we just talked about Charles Stortz calls him James.
Yeah.
And then here comes Annalise, who is a total stranger to Claire and Myrta and everybody. It is just like, Jamie.
Yes.
She's like, the fuck?
So confident enough to run up and squeeze him and call him in French, my little savage, which I never noticed before, but I had the subtitles on randomly.
I love it.
And it was my little savage, which that was hilarious.
Such a delicious little moment. And then, I don't know, and I didn't even make a note of this, but also, I love, if you watch Myrta during all these scenes, he is just like a kid in a candy store, quietly in the background, like looking at all these women dressed so, revealing, but like, it's totally underplayed. It's like subtle and perfect. But like, if you watch him, you're like, oh my God, this is hilarious. He does, for the first time in his life, Myrta does not know what to do with himself.
Yeah. He's never seen so many boobs in his life. No. Like, the French boobs are a whole nother level. And I feel like there's a bit of this that's like the saga of Myrta and boobs, until he finally sees the woman who's with Prince Louis, who's got it all hanging. And it's like, whoa! And then his brain explodes. And he's like, I can't do this anymore. I'm gonna do something about this crazy situation. That's the best.
Then he goes home and he has sex with Suzette. So
yeah, and then he starts a great romance. So good for him.
Oh my God. And in continuing on Outlander as a comedy, just the whole thing. I mean, it's uncomfortable, King Louis, shitting in front of an audience, but it's also like
that whole exchange about the porridge is just, it's so funny. Just Jamie's so earnest about it too, right? Like
he's just like, this is a simple problem, dude. Like, this is a simple solution, dude. You gotta change your diet.
Just
Fiber.
fiber.
Just some fiber.
Speaking of uncomfortable, so Claire meets Duvernay, the Minister of Finance.
Oh, God.
And he immediately gets the wrong idea. Thanks, Louise. Now, I will admit that Claire's shoes are just fantastic, but like, dude, like, man, what the fuck? But my favorite part of that whole scene is Jamie just tossing him into the water. Splash.
I feel like he comes in like a caveman and immediately, like, there's no words exchanged. Like,
the aftermath with the wig, though.
That's great. Yeah,
that thing looked like a wet beaver pelt, and I mean, like, the animal, like, it looked.
It rivals Jamie's squirrel wig.
Oh, God.
Squirrel carcass wig in season 4.
Yeah. Oh, no. The other people we meet, okay, so yeah, after Duvernay, there's just tons of people we get to kind of meet again at Versailles. Then we see there was a very visceral reaction from Myrta and then Claire to seeing Sandringham at
yeah, like Jamie's the one that like really keeps his head in that situation. Yeah, thank goodness, because
nobody else is. Yeah,
Myrta was definitely gonna just fucking kill him.
Yeah, Claire was trying to figure out how to get his trachea through his nostril.
And it's so interesting too, like, comparing to the settings to Scotland. It's like Jamie very, aggressively tells Myrta, like, you can't just pull out your sword in front of the king or at the king's court. You're gonna be like immediately arrested. Like, it's just totally different than they would just start beating each other up and having a sword fight in the middle of Scotland.
Well, that's one of the things that I do like about season 2 is that you get to see Jamie in this different light. Because, if you think about way back in season 1 when they're at like the Black Kirk and he kind of says to Claire, I'm an educated man. He has been classically educated. He was educated in Paris. He has rubbed elbows with princes and paupers. Like, he can get along with anybody. And in Scotland, you see so much more of that, the more just natural Scottish whatever of Jamie. But then in Paris, you do really get to see that more refined side of him that maybe not, he doesn't really like it, but he can fit in very smoothly in others, in high society. He speaks French, and it's nice to see that, because as we talked about before, that is kind of what helps John start to recognize things in Jamie that where they're really more alike than different, right? Like, because when they're in Ardsmuir, I think the first thing that he that catches him by surprise is like the books that Jamie has read and stuff like that, and has memorized.
Yeah, and what he knows about food and stuff, I know.
Yeah,
yeah. He knows the dishes, and yeah.
So it's a really cool thing, I think, for us to see too, just more of a multifaceted Jamie. And it really makes you have like a deeper appreciation for his character.
Yeah, and it's more layered, and you even step back, because I'm in season 1, Claire has that moment where you realize that she's kind of assumed that he's like a brute until he reveals that, yeah, he's had this education, and then obviously you find out that he's a great strategist, and people respect him for those kind of things and stuff too. So it's like, yeah, it's a good reminder of he doesn't need to be in Scotland to be successful, like, in wherever he is.
And interestingly too, I mean, Claire's very similar, right? Like, she is, obviously from the 40s, she's an educated woman, but she's also a worldly woman because of how she grew up, but she gets right down in the literal trenches during World War II. She has no problem, which we kind of talked about in episode 201. She has no problem adjusting to like just having no modern, conveniences around her. She can start a campfire. She can, go on horseback tracking her husband with Jenny. But she also speaks French. She can fit in with these with French aristocracy. So they're very similar in that way, which I think is why John finds them both quite interesting.
Mm-hmm. I would agree.
I would too.
Because then you could say John fits into that as well. Because I feel like my first assumption, I have to kind of remind myself sometimes. I was like, oh, he's, so refined and polite, and he so strictly keeps to a set of rules, and for certain reasons, and for safety and different things like that for his circumstances and stuff too. But then he can fly off the handle, and he can he's a very adept swordsman, and also quite a good strategist, and I almost feel like he too kind of succeeds in as a soldier in ways that he doesn't even interest him much, and stuff like that. So it's always kind of like the more like the grittier parts of John that I sometimes have to remind myself of when I write and stuff.
I'm kind of laughing because you said something about John being so refined, and it's kind of true, but he's also a complete disaster and the most catty bitch ever, and I love it.
He's so messy.
But he like hides it. But the way he taught, like when he's being messy and catty, at least in front of other people, he like does it in a way that's so British. Like it's so British society. You know what I mean? Like he's not just gonna like do a Claire.
You just said something that we cannot even touch the surface of in the time that we have left. But it would be awesome for another episode to dive into this. You said that John has accomplishments and successes in the military that he doesn't even
have interest in.
And I would love to have a deep dive at some point on John's like general disinterest with the military in general, despite it being like his entire adult life career.
That's so true.
That would be awesome to discuss. So maybe someone could write us in about their thoughts on that, and we could use that too. But and it's funny too. At one point, I can't remember if this was just a connection I made in my head or if John actually says it, but there's a point too, I think, where he realizes that I think Jamie speaks more languages than he does.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And even though John, I'm sure, had a good education at home being tutored, I don't think he ever went to like university or anything. Unless he went after he came back. But that would have been kind of late in life, actually, for someone to go to university in that time. Like after he came back from Scotland. I don't think he did. I think he was just in London that whole time, kind of.
I don't remember.
Having a really rough time of it for a while.
I don't know if he talks
Is there a connection to Eton? Because he sent Willie Goes to Eton. And I feel like there was a connection there mentioned in the books, like a throwaway line, but I can't remember.
I don't know. It could have even been a connection to the Dunsanies.
It could have been.
Correction for next week.
Oh, I don't know if I'll find that.
Are we taking notes of all these things that I promised to look up? Because I'm not.
I'll let you know. I'll pop you a message in Discord while I'm editing.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I was also going to say, when you were naming all the things like that John also is, I was going to, you neglected to add that he's also a freak in the sheets. So I just wanted to make sure that
yes.
that got out there.
Yes, agreed. Yeah. Sorry for that. For missing that vital part.
Terrible oversight on your part, Beth.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ness, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, not me.
Yeah,
not you. No, you got it. You got it. Sorry.
Credit is due.
Okay, so Sandringham shows up in Versailles, trying to get us back on track here. we have veered slightly. I never want to interrupt like a John conversation because it is Lord Johnlander after all. So we're just gonna let those fly. So Sandringham shows up and it's absolutely awful. And I kind of got this sense that like he knows in really disgusting detail what Randall did to Jamie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the look he gives Claire when he walks away at the end is creepy as hell.
Oh yeah.
Well, and he says like, it's so good to see you in such good health. Like, ugh.
I don't like him. And he's a weenie. Like, I can't think of any other word for him but weenie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just a terribly constructed villain. And I just don't.
Well, then he's not even a villain. He's like a villain adjacent.
He's funding the villains. He's funding the villains.
I mean, he would be up there as like worst character, but he's just he can be so entertaining that it's just, at least he's, that's his one up.
If entertaining, you mean nauseating, yes.
I know, but in a more fun way. He's more, you gotta admit he's more fun.
He's
maybe
the
I just
Diet Coke of evil. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, I was
the Diet Coke of evil. No, you should say it.
He's the Diet Coke of evil. Just 1 calorie, not evil enough.
And also leaves you with a terrible taste in your mouth.
Yeah, the aftertaste, man. I don't know, his brand of extra is something I can get on board with. Let's just say that.
Ugh.
Oh, I mean, putting aside like his evilness, I mean, he is very entertaining because he's so ridiculous.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, he always, because of his stupid ass wig, he reminds me of the Cowardly Lion.
Oh my god!
Who is also
so good.
Who is also ridiculous and entertaining, but not evil.
He absolutely has those vibes. Holy shit. That's good.
I can't wait for Murtaugh to cut his head off because that is the most righteous kill in the entire series.
That is, that's a great one, actually.
I like that. I like that one even better than Bonnet.
Oh yeah, it's more satisfying.
Absolutely. Oh,
yeah,
100%.
And I think the actor Simon, oh my god, I always get his last name wrong, but he talked about how they made the head and stuff too, and how he like loved the head and he carried it around and stuff. I just thought
that's disgusting, man.
I just found that hilarious because he was so proud that it looked so much like him. I just thought that was funny.
Simon Callow,
because I always want to say Callow.
That's wrong.
Oh my god, and I know it's wrong. That's the thing. I know it's similar. That's why, but.
So were there things this episode that just didn't make sense? Other than why are the bad guys such weenies?
And why is BJR still alive? Like, make it make sense. I didn't find a lot, but somebody did. Somebody put some stuff on the doc.
Yeah, so mine is more of a general first half. Well, no, entire season 2. This doesn't make sense. Why? Okay, and maybe let's try to I understand the point of something an atrocity is about to happen, and so a natural instinct would be to try to prevent that atrocity. I think that's a normal thing that people can understand, but I don't understand how they've come to Claire's pregnant, which I just feel like, as somebody who was recently pregnant, I'm just like, why do you have any goals when you're pregnant? You like focus on being pregnant, maybe. Like that's a lot to deal with. Number one, but she's got these incredible goals to save Scotland, and she's not Scottish, and she's with these 2 Scottish men who don't seem to care as much as her about saving Scotland. Does that seem like a fair statement. And
it does. I hadn't. Oh my god.
So, and then when you come up against roadblock on roadblock of you've been there months and months and months as nothing is happening. Apparently, they only just get to meet the person who's trying to meet Charles Stewart, who is making this thing happen. That takes a long time, and then he's such a tool. He's the worst kind of tool. You can't trust him, and he has all this weird power. And then you meet Duvernay, who's the other guy that you need to maybe go, okay, this guy's a tool, but maybe we can derail him this way. And then he's another different kind of tool. So you think you'd come against these people going, oh, this is gonna be how is this possible with all these kind of like strange people in the mix? But yet it doesn't deter them. They start to get new ideas and about how to do it, and but yeah, I feel like it just comes up with so many roadblocks. I don't know why they keep pursuing it. And then Claire, as the person who is the leader of this charge, I just think the story might have, and I understand why it would have been more difficult, but this is fiction, and maybe there should have been some more creativity in the sense of, why couldn't Claire be the one to somehow be the ear to Charles Stewart, and then she's the one who, not that Jamie can't be convincing, but I kind of feel like Claire's got this way of enchanting people, and in a way that might have worked on his dumb ass. But I'm like, if they would have, I almost feel like they could have used something where it's like, okay, so now you know that, sorry, spoiler, Louise and Charles Stewart are having an affair. Gross. I feel like that could have been the plot. You find out that your friend is sleeping with this important person. You want him to do these things so that to prevent this thing, and they could have made it work without it being like she has to seduce him or something, which would have been a stupid way to go about it. But I do think there's a different story there that would have potentially been interesting, where she enacted her own shit instead of making the men do it for her.
Well, I think that in the beginning, I mean, they didn't know that she doesn't find that out about Louise until like they've been there for several months.
Yes, exactly. But I'm just saying that's my point, is that if they would have just revealed that early and used that as the plot, that was my point.
Yeah, I mean, they could have, but also, how long has Charles actually been there? I mean, we don't even know how long the affair with Louise has been going on.
Well, yes,
so,
exactly.
Like, it could very well have not even been going on when they got there. So it made sense for them to set it up. I mean, that just made more sense for them to set it up where Jamie would try to get ingratiated to Charles Stewart. And this actually becomes a theme in like next episode or the episode after, where Claire feels really useless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Because she's doing is like having tea with society ladies, and she does want to kind of get her hands dirty and get involved more, but she just doesn't really know how or where to get that like break. But she does, once she finds out that info about Louise, she does orchestrate that entire dinner party.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, I mean, she does what she can.
So to summarize, the thing that makes no sense to you is the whole plot.
The whole plot of the first half of season 2? Who's shocked? The whole plot of season 2, my second least favorite season of Outlander? Yeah, who's shocked? Nobody should be shocked. I should have just been like, you guys do season 2 without me. I just hate it too much. Well, I think there's this weird wish fulfillment situation in season 2 where, once again, I watched it before I read it. And I watched it when it aired. So just to remember kind of a vague feeling of like, oh, this is happening because something is going to change. That's right. Usually why stories happen and plots like this happen, is because something is actually going to change. The result of the storyline is not nothing fucking changes. Like, whatever you want to say, that's, I don't know. I don't think it's creative. Maybe someone can make an argument for that being creative. I think it's
disappointing.
It's letting your reader / viewer down. obviously, I actually do love kind of the end of season 2 for other reasons, and where it takes the plot in a way that's finally really interesting again for quite a few episodes. But I'm just like, I could have done with so much less of whatever the hell this is.
So I think that history is kind of a character in Outlander, but
Right.
it is not the main character.
Mm.
So when history does not change, it's almost like, instead of it just because it doesn't move the plot forward in that type of way, I think that it contributes to the overall theme that they actually can't change history.
I don't think you needed an entire season to do that, I guess.
Well,
is my point. Yeah.
And what I was going to say is that plays much better in a book than it does on
Yes.
screen.
Yeah, there you go.
So,
yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, it doesn't translate well. But yeah, just season 2 in general, you know. Though, I'll move on if nobody else has anything to add about that specifically. But what is fun about season 2 is that it reminds me of great fanfics that I've read by our own Mistress Pandora, because I see Annalise now, and I can't help but think of Die for This Kingdom, where Claire's wife, was she officially her wife?
Well, no, it was the 1920s. But
that's right. I'm dumb. Yeah,
they were living together. They were just good friends. They were roommates.
Right. The roommates that lived together and helped raise Brianna were Claire and Annalise.
Claire divorced Jamie so that she could be with Annalise.
Love it so much.
That brings us, skipping around a little, but actually, no, I'm not skipping around. That brings us right to our non-canon ship of the week. And I had added a second one, but we'll use that later. So the one that we're going to go with is Claire and Annalise. I think that must be Ness's note in there as well. Shout out to Kingdom. So that's our non-canon ship of the week.
Yeah, so you can read about Claire and Annalise kind of as a very side kind of, or like a mention in Pan's longer fic of Die for This Kingdom. But then there's also a time to like shout out to the timestamp that's more recent to Annalise that you can find on Annalise. I thought about that as the fic rec too, but I was like, oh, I'll just do a little shout out in the non-canon ship. But there is a little Claire and Annalise one-shot timestamp that you can find on Pan's AO3, Mistress Pandora.
It would be a fun, like, rivals to lovers kind of thing, like in the canon setting.
Yeah, that'd be fun. And I'll say too, there is a random fic that I remember that I read a while ago, and I'm sure is still around. And I'm sure all you have to do is search this pairings. I don't think there would be a lot of them. There was a threesome fic of Claire, Jamie, and Annalise, where she came in to spice up their love life or something. So there you go.
Interesting. I mostly like John as a means to spice up Jamie and Claire's love life, but I'll take a look. We usually would talk about what John's up to right at this point. We did get to talk about him a little already, and I just want to point out here, because we really didn't mention much about Mary Hawkins because we just went down different roads, but John and Mary Hawkins are the same age. So she is 15 years old when Louise is just like letting it all hang out in front of her. And of course she's going to be married to this gross guy, but Outlander, and I've seen other period dramas do this too. Like, they kind of try to just like not mention the age of the character that all this creepy stuff is happening to, because even though it happened at the time and it wasn't necessarily seen as like taboo, it's definitely taboo for modern audiences. So to get around that, they just kind of don't mention it, right? Like they're just like, we're not good. It's the same thing with like Fergus and Marcelly, their age difference. But it's interesting to think of her and John as being the same age, just because we don't see so much of young John in the show
we kind of forget how young he is. I think, even when he first meets Jamie.
So what fic did we add to our Dead on Arrival list this week? I have one. Do you guys have any?
Yeah, I've got one.
Go for it. What's the fic you're not going to write?
It was nothing inspired by the episode because I was because I already killed Charles Stewart in a fic. And I can only imagine that would be the only thing that would come out of this, at least from my, from watching, I'm like, oh yeah, I don't really have any lingering. And I want to say I'm pretty lucky in the sense that I don't have a lot of these Dead on Arrival fics, because I don't let my mind go there because I would get so overwhelmed so quickly. I'm one of those people, I'm like, if I start one fic, I have to finish one fic. And I think I have like 3 started right now. And it like wants to give me like an aneurysm, I swear.
How do you turn your brain off though? Because I don't have a choice in the matter. They just come.
And they do come. And when they do come and I like them, I write them down in my notes and then I immediately distract myself is what happens. And
That's way healthier.
And then, because then the other ideas that come are usually in, like group chats where we talk about stuff like this. And I just am like, no, that's for you. You don't understand. That's a you thing. That's not a me thing. I would say I'm fairly choosy in stuff I think I'm capable of writing / stuff I want to write. So that helps a little bit. But, so usually the stuff that gets in my Dead on Arrival stuff is big, epic, fics that I'm too intimidated to write, but that I love to read, and so I had this thought of, oh yeah, my favorite like AUs that have like a big epic story, and so I thought about a cowboy AU, which is one of my favorites, and that I've read great kind of different versions of this all over from like Brokeback Mountain to like even different kind of stuff. And I had this thought of inspired by A Place to Call Home, which was the Australian primetime soap that David Barry was in, and it was so that I like binged so hard after eating up all the Jamie John fic. I think what happened. So it's kind of inspired by that because it's kind of like where I wanted the show to go, where it didn't go after like, I don't know if it was like the 2nd season or something, but that John comes from a family that owns ranches, and they're wealthy. So they're kind of the business people and not necessarily the on the ground kind of people. And Jamie is a ranch hand that is on one of the farms, and John has a fiance, but is like rejecting that he's might be bisexual, and Jamie is the one who is more open about his sexuality and is trying, or at least like befriends John and tries to encourage him to accept himself, blah 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 blah. I just kind of like that flip because obviously it's
yes.
You've read stuff where it's the other way.
I like it when Jamie's the one that's more like open about his sexuality.
Well, I feel like there's not a lot of that compared to the other. Oh, and then there's not a lot of, I'll call it, what do we call it with Kingdom 2? It was like generally modern AU or like whatever, modern AU, some sort of modern popular AU. But so there's not a lot of that in general. So I felt like I had to pick one of those.
So mine was a short one that popped into my head like after I rewatched the episode, which was Jamie. How did Jamie recognize the name of the brothel that he was supposed to meet our favorite prince at? And like it, what came to mind was he's been there before, but he was with Pierre. And then I had this like really beautiful like mental image of Jamie and Pierre and one of the women, and they're just not paying attention to her. So she gets like a free night off. I'm not going to write it because it's, like I think I'm probably swearing off Porn Without Plot just because I really don't like writing smut.
So, I have to say, why would you do that to yourself as someone who waits to write it? Yeah.
I don't think it's not going to happen. Someone else is welcome to do it. Take it.
I have not mastered the TWP, even though I'm a big fan. My brain wants plot so badly I haven't figured it out.
So yeah, so that was my DOA fic. I also wrote down 3 while we were talking today.
Oh God.
I'm not going to
Oh
mention.
no.
I'm gonna keep those. Yes.
Save them up. I know I'm gonna make a little list now because like I said, I don't usually have a lot, so I'll have to make a list of probably random AU ones.
Welcome to my hell.
Oh, I just want to add too, Ness, when you were saying that you kind of like shy away from like when you get fic ideas that are like more bigger stories, you like shy away from them. Mm-hmm. You are like the exact opposite of me. I'm like the one that is always biting off way more than I can chew with way more confidence than I ever like deserve to have.
That's amazing though. I commend you for that. I'm just a coward. At least you're brave.
Yeah, but that's why I have like a whole bunch of unfinished works in progress that I have shamefully posted on AO3, and right now like I'm posting for like another fandom, and it makes me feel really guilty about my Outlander babies. So yeah,
and I would have an aneurysm if that happened to me. That's my hell. Like that's my nightmare. That's why I refuse to let myself even get there. But it does give a perfect little introduction to the fic record this week.
Yes.
Which is about our beloved Pierre. I do feel like I was the first fan of Pierre. I just want to claim my place as that person.
I think you were.
Oh. I wasn't the one who named him. Sadly, I missed that conversation. But I was the first fan. I freaked out. Like, I can't even tell you. I was like, this is my favorite headcanon of all time. I immediately I have a fic, once again, in the list of things that I tell myself I'm going to write, where I'm going to use it very, like, vaguely. And I asked Pan if I could use it, and I was just like, this is the perfect little glimpse into Jamie's past that we need in the story, the thing that would make everything tied together. I lost my mind when I read it the first time in More Eloquent Than Words, I believe, was the first instance, right? And you did talk about this, I believe, in the finale of season 1, which is such a fun episode. I just want to call that out, which is the Pierre fic, which is Trespass Sweetly Urged by our lovely Mistress Pandora on AO3, which is how Jamie learns to suck dick. It's great. It's great. It's literally
the best synopsis. I'm gonna go change it right now.
I mean, it's great. It's super great, and Pierre is the best, and and also just talking about things that don't make sense, leaving plots and or details or whatever, character things, letting them trail off into the nothingness to never come back to visit us again. Here's Pan. She gives us a great piece of backstory for Jamie's bisexuality, and then she gives us a reason why he knows about uncircumcised dicks. It's freaking the best. It's the best. It's like 2 threads that drive you crazy and fixed. It's like a fix-it. It really is like a fix-it. It should be called a fix-it. So go read it. It's great.
Thank you for the kind recommendation. I appreciate that.
I also love it, but I would never be able to just yes, what Ness said.
How about a quick mail call?
Yeah, so I found this, we didn't get anybody that has written into us or anything yet, but that makes sense because we haven't really been pushing it in real time, right? So we're recording this at the end of September, so it kind of makes sense. But we did go through some of our Tumblr comments, and there were a couple really good comments on Tumblr. One of them was in reaction to our episode about episodes 15 and 16 of Outlander. And the commenter said, I often wonder in reading the books if Diana wanted us to wonder if Jamie was a homosexual in denial. She peppers these thoughts throughout the books. Does anyone else get this idea, or am I crazy? Which is very multi-layered for me.
Yes.
Yeah. There's a lot. There's a lot.
And think about who you're asking.
Right. So I think what this commenter is asking is, do you think if we're going back to like the episode that this was about, do we think that Jamie having like some pleasure from when he was raped, do we think that that is a way that Diana is trying to hint at us that Jamie is queer or bisexual or whatever? And I'm hoping not.
If it is, it's done badly. Yeah.
I fucking hope not.
I would not, unfortunately. I mean, there's some authors that I would be like, no, but I cannot, I cannot be sure with this author. I hope not.
Seeing as how she described Blackjack Randall as not a homosexual because he...
Right.
So I would assume, so I guess it's maybe a little safer to assume not, but once again, you can never say with her.
Mm-mm.
And like setting aside the fact that Diana often has said outside of the books that Jamie is not bisexual or queer or anything. I do think though, and we've talked about this before, that there are a ton of hints in other parts of these stories that show that he is bisexual.
Oh yeah.
But I think Diana didn't actually intend them to do that, but they did anyway.
Yeah, I don't think it was intentional. So like if Jamie having a physiological response during sexual trauma was intentionally the clue, can we cancel her now completely?
Yes, exactly.
So I hope not. I really hope not, because that would be a shit take. But at the same time, I don't think it's intentional that so much of what Jamie does throughout the series of books just has no straight explanation.
Right.
So it just makes no sense. Like, I'm worried I'm going to think about John while we're having sex. I'm sorry,
I'm
you're
so
what?
glad you said that one.
What?
So glad you said that one.
I wanted to have sex with him because I don't think I can really get to know a person until I'm inside their body and scratching my hairs
Just
against
be a good
them.
parent, don't you know? I'm vetting him for my son.
That's weird. God. That's not normal.
And like, I'm gonna kiss this guy twice, especially especially the kiss in Jamaica, where he just sees him and just becomes overcome. Like,
oh my God.
People would be like, oh, that's just because he's happy to see him because John's raising his son. No, the fuck it's not. No, the fuck it's not. I'm sorry, but no.
He's not seeing Willie.
No, exactly.
Like, it'd be different if Willie was there.
Or if John was like, I've brought William to see you, and Jamie was like, oh, I love you,
Yeah, absolutely grateful, yeah.
Even then, like, so there's Happy Days, and I wrote a fic.
Number one.
Oh God, I don't remember which fic it was that Ash and I wrote, but it was
the best one.
He was writing Claire's part, I was writing Jamie's part. They were talking about her catching Jamie and John naked or something, and he wrote this great line from Claire, which was, half a dozen languages between you, surely one of them could have been thank you.
Yes. Oh my God.
I read that one too, I think.
Yeah. So it doesn't make any sense. There's no heterosexual relation. Well, there's not. There's no. I'm losing my fucking mind. There is no straight explanation for any of the shit that Jamie does that makes no sense, particularly in reference to John. There's no explanation.
This reminds me of like the people that you could show them like letters or whatever that are like clearly love letters between like, two women or two men. And they're like, oh, that's just how people talked then. They were just more like that then. Yeah, if they were gay, like, it's like there's this, I don't know if I'll be able to find it, but I'm going to look. But there's like this hilarious, like either TikTok or Instagram thing or whatever of like homophobic, museum curators, like trying to justify, like,
Yes.
and it's funny because my daughter asked me, she texted me like last week, and one of her friends was over, and she said, which ones of the founding fathers were gay? And I was like, oh, this is, you're really just, that's a lot to unpack right now. But I was like, so basically she was talking to her friend and he didn't believe her. Like, she was saying like some of the founding fathers were gay, and he didn't believe her. And I said, well, the evidence is it's literally right there in their letters. Mm-hmm. And he kind of said, well, I think people just kind of talked fancier then, they're young. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
of course, yeah.
And so then I literally went and like, I read that letter, and I was like, one of the letters, and I was like, there's no straight explanation.
And just because, in case I never get to fic wreck this, for the Jamaica episode in season 3, go and read The Man I've Become by Mistress Pandora, and Happy Days. It is the best Jamaica fix-it ever.
I can't remember if I've read that one.
It's the best. It's one of my favorites of all time. And it's exactly what, like, it did. I'm just like, it did happen in Jamaica. What are you even talking about? It's just like, actually, like, no, it did. Like, don't tell, like, there's no reason it didn't. Even if you watch the episode, like, it's the book and it's the episode, it's both. It's the only thing that makes sense. But just because of the question, framed it in the way of like, oh, is he a homosexual who's in hiding, is what it said?
In denial.
In denial, sorry. I think there's just to kind of, because of the language, because this is what I do usually, is I'll pick apart the language. I think, despite the fact that I think Outlander is literally a better series if Jamie is gay, genuinely, it's the only way I really want to consume it. I do think he's not a homosexual. I do think he's bisexual. I think we've kind of said it very commonly in the podcast and in the fandom space. That's how we tend to identify him, because I think logic just kind of drives us towards, it's like, we're not going to deny that he loves Claire. We're not going to deny that he is sexually attracted in other ways to Claire, or that the relationship, we're not going to invalidate Jamie and Claire's relationship in that way, at least. Maybe we'll invalidate it in other ways. But like in toxicity and things, but or unrealistic expectations or that kind of stuff. But not in the sense of like he's with her and secretly, wishing he was only with men. I think it's just very. If you look closer, I urge you to look closer at the material. Lots of material that's provided for us fans, and that he. I can't help but want to laugh and giggle at anybody who says that Jamie is heterosexual. I think that's hilarious. I'm not gonna say he's homosexual, but you can't even and then it's fair. We're meeting in the middle. So
yeah, I think that was a misnomer, whatever on the.
I wasn't sure, but just in case someone's like, "Oh, are you saying he's homosexual?" No, we actually are just saying that he's bisexual.
No, not at all.
Love with John, and people can be in love with two people, and there's lots of complicated stuff around that.
And he very much enjoys sex with his wife. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. We're not even saying that. Yeah.
And I think that there is some evidence that he may even be demisexual,
which I think it also makes sense. Yeah, there's just people I know, Pan and I and different other people in the fandom who just are no, I just like it better if he's in a gay relationship. I just genuinely like the story better.
Right, yeah, exactly. I agree.
Well, I think that brings us to the end of episode 2, season 2. Thank you, Ness, so much for joining us. This has been such a fun conversation.
So welcome. It was so much fun. Can't wait to be back again to complain about this season.
We're so thankful to our sponsors for letting you come back again.
I know they fought. They were not happy about it. I really tried to hold back on the things that they...
That's why our episodes with Ness are longer, because
after all the fighting we have to do with those sponsors to get her on the show, like it better make it worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Drag it out.
Let's see. Any final notes other than we want to hear from you? So find us on Twitter, Tumblr at Lord Johnlander. You can also reach us on our website, lordjohnlander.wordpress.com/contact us. If you don't want to have your name shared on the air, that's fine. Just let us know. We won't publish it. We won't say your name. If you want to talk to us but be anonymous, that's completely fine.
If you leave a comment, we're just going to assume you want to be anonymous, because we will use some comments, but we're not going to call you out for it.
and that's what we did today. Like what we found was a comment on a Tumblr post, and kind of, commenting on Tumblr is kind of like, I want to be in the conversation, but I don't necessarily want everybody to know that I'm in the conversation. It's kind of a quiet way of participating. So we don't want to put anyone on blast, unless you specifically tell us that we can. Yeah. So thank you for listening, and we will talk to you next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
If you're listening to this, it means you survived another episode of Lord Johnlander. We'd love to hear from you on Twitter or Tumblr at Lord Johnlander, or on our website at lordjohnlander.wordpress.com/contact us.
All opinions expressed on the Lord Johnlander podcast belong to us and are not affiliated with Outlander, Sony, Starz, and definitely 100% not with Diana Gabaldon.
This podcast is not suitable for children, immature adults, homophobes, anyone who takes fandom seriously, people who don't understand that the characters aren't real, people with sticks up their ass, people who hate fun, and people with no sense of humor. Do not try any of these hot takes at home. We are professionals.
And if you know us in real life, no you don't.